In this segment, we're going to talk about virtual standby. So virtual standby and the ability to export directly to the Hyper-V and VMware platforms is a very, very beneficial feature. What it does for you is it enables, for the one-time export, it enables you to recover quickly. So let's say I have a set of VMDK files that get completely munched on the disk. I have to basically rebuild that entire machine. So what we can do is we can do an export, and we can do the entire machine, which could take some time if it's a large machine, or we can choose only to export specific volumes. For instance, the C drive. So if I can export the C drive, go into the configuration on the virtual platform, edit it, add the other disks, and then use the live recovery feature, well, I've just shortened the time to recover dramatically. Right? Let's say it's a typical C drive, and you've got roughly somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 gigs or so on there. If you're doing this on a decent machine, somewhere in the neighborhood of 15, 20, 30 minutes, you'll have the export complete. Now, virtual standby is that same exact set of features, except that it's done in continuous mode. You set this up instead of at the time of a failure, you set it up in advance. All it costs you is extra disk space. So what does it look like? If I go into my Machines tab and I choose a particular machine, we'll say the Exchange server here, I can go to Export and then choose a particular format. In this demo environment, I do not have the ability to export to a vCenter environment, so I'm going to choose the workstation export for now. They're very similar. A couple of minor differences in the two. So here's my first choice, one-time export or continuous. Again, one-time I can use if I have to create a sandbox, or if I have to create a clone of a machine so that I can actually use it for testing purposes. Maybe this is done as a recovery if the original machine is gone. All right, so that's your one-time export. Continuous, on the other hand, offers us some unique benefits. Now, because this is a continuous export, I'm doing this long before a disaster could potentially strike. So first things first, what I'll do is I'll choose a disk. In this case, I'm going to use the repository disk, and we'll just say create a new folder called VM Standby. And you can do this anywhere. I mean, if you're doing the export of a workstation, you're not tied to the virtual platform. So if you wanted to export this to a NAS device or to an external disk or whatever methodology, you can even do this to an external disk and stick it in the trunk of the car so that it's off-site for small and medium business. Take it home with you, bring it home, on a nightly basis, come back in, resync it the next day. So now I have my VM Standby folder. We're just going to go ahead and copy that address. We'll put it here. Username and password is only used if you have to actually log into, let's say, a NAS device or a Windows share. Now, because I'm doing this as a standby, it means that I am not in the midst of any kind of major outage, which means I have the time to build the entire machine. All right, so I'm going to leave all the volumes selected. The virtual machine name will just, append a different name to it. And then here we have the ability to choose to override the RAM settings. We simply hit save, and the settings are done. So now, if we go to virtual standby, we can see that we have one configured. It hasn't been performed, so the next thing that will happen is it will go into the queue and it will start creating this entire machine. Let's talk about the different platforms. For the ESX, ESXi vCenter platform, we're actually exporting using the vStorage API set, and that allows us to place a VM within a specific data store and a specific resource pool. We can go in and configure all of the relevant settings, including, how the disks get mapped. This is beneficial because when you think about, one of the potential configurations that people have used over the years with VMware are, large disk support. They would use something called a raw disk map, right? Not many products on the market support these. We do. So we can actually recover to, a raw disk map volume with no issues. For when you get to the Hyper-V platform, we are going to just simply export it directly to the Hyper-V server and create everything we need to create on the Hyper-V host. So now, when I do a virtual standby, for any protected server, it's ready to go at any point in time. The benefit in continuous mode is that after the initial build is done, every time I do a snapshot, those snapshot level changes, block level changes, are written to their associated VMDK or VHD files. So it's always up to date. The other cool thing is replication, which allows me to take all of the snapshot data and replicate it to another core server. I can have virtual standbys on either side of that replication relationship. So I can have virtual standbys waiting in the wings in a remote data center. If I lose through some kind of disaster, power outage, whatever, if I lose my primary, I can power everything on in the remote site. The remote site can be another data center, a colo facility, your basement, the cloud, or anything. It doesn't make a difference. So you can have that level of redundancy that, in 10 years ago, you'd be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to achieve. And here, it's all included. That's the virtual standby.